Hello everyone, Helen here. How are you today? I hope you're okay. And yeah, I am back in my craft room. I can actually sit in here now. And so if you haven't been here before, my craft room had got into quite a state of great disorganisation, and I've been busy sorting it out. And I'm not really going to talk to you about that today, but I'm going to have a catch up of lots and lots of bits and bobs. So this is definitely going to be a bit more of a show and tell chat today, because I've got all sorts of things. I've got a list here, things not to forget to tell you. So I better get started. Don't know how long it's going to take me. So first of all, before I go on to any of these things, thank you ever so much. There was some really excellent and helpful and lovely comments on last week's podcast when I was talking about gathering my thoughts at this time of the year in January, and I certainly have done a lot of gathering and a bit more gathering from reading your comments. So if you haven't read them and you kind of want to see other people's thoughts on this time of the year, it's really worth going and reading them. But yes, so that was really good. Thank you very much. And although I think I've sort of finished gathering my thoughts, but I haven't really got myself any kind of a plan for the coming year. Not at all. I know I've got little ideas in my head of things that I know I want to make or do, but I haven't got anything written down, and so it's all feeling nice and fluid and open at the moment. And when I have a better idea, of course, I'll be sharing that with you as well. But for the moment, I have got lots and lots of bits and bobs to gather together to tell you about. So some of them I probably should have included. I think I just ran out of time, or I don't know, in my Advent roundup, my first podcast of the year. And I suddenly realised afterwards, oh, I didn't tell you about this, I didn't tell you about that. So I'm going to tell you a few things. And one of the things that I really should have mentioned in the Advent roundup was the Woodland House project, the big project, which you might just be able to see behind me there. And I didn't really say anything about it at all. Obviously, I didn't during Advent because it was all meant to be a little bit of a surprise, running right up to the 24th of December. And I think quite a lot of people had fun trying to guess what it was going to be. And then it ended up as a woodland house for a little family of tiny gnomes, and I'd made quite a lot of the furniture. And so my whole idea with this woodland house was that it's meant to look like a kind of a tree stump, really. So one of the many things that didn't get finished in time was to try and make the outside of the house look like tree bark. So that's something that I am planning to do at some point. And I think I did say during Vlogmas that I didn't get all of the furniture finished that I wanted to make. So the house itself, I didn't have a pattern for at all. It was just completely my idea of wanting this circular house. And so I just made it up as I went along. I knew that I wanted to make it from felt, and I knew that I would need to use cardboard to strengthen it. So that's all it's made from, felt and cardboard. And yeah, I just kind of made it up as I went along. And yeah, you might have seen when I was trying to do the roof that I did the roof, and then I realised that it wasn't going to stay up, so I had to devise a way of keeping it upright, which I more or less did. I think I still need to make a little adjustment to make it a little bit less likely to fall off when you just knock against it. But yes, so it is an ongoing project, but it was finished enough in time for Christmas for it to be all dressed up for Christmas and be part of that last day of Vlogmas that I did. Hopefully you will see that woodland house return at some point when I decide to work on that. What else? Let's have a look. I'm just going to have to keep looking at my list because there's so many things. Oh yes, kind of related to the woodland house. It's the woodland choir. And the Woodland Choir now has a pianist to play for them, because I got such a lovely Christmas gift from one of you lovely viewers, which was this mouse, felted mouse, sitting playing the piano. Isn't that just perfect? I mean, the mouse is sitting on top of my piano. Now, my digital piano, my Yamaha one, because it looks almost identical. The pianos look almost identical, and I just love it. So I think next time the Woodland, well, I'm saying next time, I don't really have any plans, but should the Woodland Choir decide to perform again, they now have somebody to play the piano for them. So that's really nice, isn't it? And something else that's slightly related to woodlands and things, I forgot to show you just after Christmas the beautiful Yule log that my son made for us for Christmas Day. He made the beautiful toadstools from meringue. We were very impressed with it anyway, thought it was really lovely. Yeah, so that was that. And then something that I couldn't show you until after Christmas was a blanket that I made, and that was for my mother-in-law. And so I made her a lap blanket, and I used the Yarn Smith's Pebble Haze prints, which I'd used before to make the blanket that I called the seam blanket, where I just did rows and rows of V-stitch. My mother-in-law just, every time she saw it, went, oh, the colours are so beautiful in that. So that's what made me decide to make her a blanket out of it. But I decided to, partly because I wanted it to grow a bit quicker, instead of using double knitting thickness, I used the next thickness, because they do it in a Aran weight as well. And so I did, and I didn't do the same stitch. I did, I found a free corner to corner blanket. And did that, and I used not the seam colourway, but the one that's called Saltburn, which is another beach not too far from us. It's not quite as close as Seam, but it's it's on the northeast coast anyway. And those colours were just as lovely, I thought, and it was very gratefully received. so that was nice that I can show you that. And then I told you that I was knitting a pair of socks for my daughter for her birthday, her January birthday. So they have now been gifted, and I made them out of a beautiful yarn that I bought from Attic Spin Dye, that was superwash merino with yak and some nylon in it as well. And I just think it's a gorgeous colour. So although it's a solid colour, it isn't completely solid. You can probably just pick out the kind of light and dark shades in it, but really, and it feels absolutely gorgeous. So my daughter really appreciated those socks, and I have started another pair of socks, and this time the yarn I won. I don't really very often win things, but I did win a prize, just in a prize draw on Instagram. So in November, a lovely lady called Suzie, who has a YouTube channel called Elderflower Stitches and is on Instagram as, I think, at Elderflower Stitches, and she decided to host a kind of a challenge for November. She called it #Craftvember. And I don't usually join in with these things, but it was I quite like the idea of it. So she gave a daily prompt each day of November with a question about your crafting that you did. Didn't matter what crafts they were. And I really, really enjoyed it. I enjoyed going back through old photos to find something appropriate to whatever the prompt was. And then I did do a lot of gathering of thoughts actually while I was doing that. So, you know, it was just, it was really enjoyable. And then seeing other people who were joining in as well and seeing how they were answering the different questions that there were each day. So that was really nice. And so all of the people who took part were just put into a hat, and mine was one of the names that came up. And so I received this gorgeous yarn. It's kind of a pale turquoisey, sparkly yarn. I think it's mainly merino. I'll put it on the, you can see in the photo. it's really beautiful, and I decided, actually for once, I decided to follow a sock pattern that's got a pattern in it. I mean, normally I use the just basic sock, the very first one that I ever tried, which was King Cole Socks Again, which is a free pattern that came with the first ball of sock yarn that I got, and I've stuck with that ever since. And I don't even look at the pattern while I'm knitting those plain ones. But I decided that for this beautiful, plainish but sparkly, I just thought it would look really nice with a little pattern down, you know, down the sock and foot. So I decided to do the simple skip socks, which I've done before. I think I've done them a couple of times, but not for quite a while. They're by a lady called Adrienne Cool, I think her name is. I can't remember whether I paid for it or not, but I'll leave a link in the description box in case you're interested, because it just makes a really lovely sort of twisted effect pattern, that sort of around the sock. So I think it looks quite pretty, and I'm really enjoying using the yarn. I'll probably put them in my box for gifting, but I might decide to keep them. I don't know. Wait till I finish them. I often end up not having the socks for myself because I've got quite a few people who love having hand knitted socks, and by the time I get to the time to gift them, I just have to, you know, take the ones that are there, and I often end up with no socks for me at the end of the year. So I really should make some that are definitely for me. I've got some pairs that are just for me. Yeah, so that's the socks that I'm making. And what was I going to talk about next? Oh yes, right, so blankets next. And well, I am making good progress on the Noel Nine-Patch blanket, which is by Marion Mitchell. And I've been working on this for quite a while now, since last year sometime. And it was going to be a Christmas present, but it's going to be a Christmas present this year, because it will be finished in time. So I finished, I think last time I talked about it, I'd finished all 9 panels, which have got 9 squares in each panel. And so since I spoke to you, I've been joining them together. So they are now all joined together. So I'll try and show you here. Okay, you can see we've got holes in, square holes, roughly square holes. They are for, I'm sure, I'm holding it up sideways, mind. Not, you might not have noticed, but you have to be careful when you are sewing the panels together to make sure these little Christmas parcels here were all up the same way, and I have managed to do that, so that's good. Yes, so there we go. And so the next thing to do is to fill those holes with these squares here. So I've got, so there's 4 holes to fill there, and then the next thing I have to do is on each edge here I have to extend this a bit so that it's the depth of a square, so there'll be more squares going in here and at the corners, and then finally there's a border to go around all the way around the outside. So I'm getting there. I'm quite a long way through it now. Really enjoying it, because I haven't made a blanket that's constructed in this way before. I've done blankets with squares, but not quite in this way. I love the colours because they sort of remind me of Cath Kidston type of colours, and so it's just lovely to work with. It is Stylecraft Special DK, and I just bought it as a yarn pack for this blanket, I think from Wool Warehouse. Yeah, probably Wool Warehouse. So yeah, so that's really good and making good progress. And then the other blanket that I'm doing, the Canal Boat blanket, isn't making such good progress. I think partly it's because I've been just working a bit more on the Noel Nine-Patch. But it's partly because I've had really achy arms and a bit of an achy elbow, and I think I might have just been doing a bit too much crochet. So I'm consciously trying not to do too much of this. So Probably I'm not going to keep up with the weekly pattern release that Suzie of Attic 24 is doing. Each Friday she gives out the next section of stripes for this blanket. I'll show you, this is what I've done so far anyway. Absolutely beautiful. It looks exactly like the colours that you see in the canal artwork that you see on some older canal boats and on the canal ware, on the jugs and things like that. Absolutely beautiful. It's lovely, lovely to work on. Stylecraft Special DK again. And I'm using a 4mm hook, which was, well, I did a tension sample and it measured exactly what Lucy said it needed to be. I'm using a 4mm hook, although you had to start with a bigger hook size for the foundation foundation chain and first row, which that worked fine. So I think I just used 4.5 for that. So you could buy for this, some of you might be doing this, the pack, which is an alternative pack to the Stylecraft Special DK, which is Yarn Smith's Merino DK. And my friend Sylvia is doing that, doing the blanket with that yarn pack. And when she came around here last week, she brought her blanket with me, so I put them side by side to take a photo, and you can see that the colours are really, really very similar. And I have to say that Yarn Smith's DK is beautiful. It's going to make a lovely blanket, the merino, so I will be quite tempted to use that for a project in future. And well, I think that's all I need to say. I think when I talked about this blanket before, I said that it was going to be over 7 weeks, but actually it's over 8 weeks. So for 6 Fridays in a row, Lucy is releasing the next set of stripes for the blanket, the order of the colours. And week 7 is a catch-up week, and then week 8 is the border. And I might catch up, but I'm trying, I don't want to irritate my elbow. So I think I'm just going to have to hold myself back on it, and it doesn't matter. I'm not in a race and I'm not in a competition with anybody. It will get done, and I need to enjoy it and not have a pain in my elbow while I'm doing it. Oh, dear me. So that's the blanket. What else I'm going to tell? So I think the last thing I'm going to tell you about, let me just check my list. Oh yes, so the last thing I'm going to tell you about is my new diary cover project. So this is the 3rd year in a row that I have had a diary. This is the diary that I write in at the end of each day to say what I've done. And it's been a very plain covered diary. And so I decided in 2023, I think, first of all, that I would make a nice cover for the diary. I really loved having a cover for it. And so last year I made a cover for my 2024 diary. I made it all from felt and did sort of a plique there. And I've loved it. It's nice and soft to hold each time you pick it up. And but the only thing is that it's really, really pilled. And because it's wool felt that I used, and yeah, it's just looking a bit the worse for wear. It's looking very used, and because I do take it away with me when I go in the camper van, so it gets a lot of movement in and out of things, you know, on a daily basis. So I decided I needed to do something a bit more hard wearing this year. So for this is my 2025 diary that, yeah, I write a page a day. Very boring looking. In fact, when it came, it had a slightly squished corner, and I wasn't too pleased about that. But I thought, no, I'm going to make it a cover, so it's fine. So I decided I would quite like to do a bit of patchwork. So I decided I would make a little hexagon cover for it, hexagon patchwork cover for it. Now I'm not very experienced with patchwork, and but a little while ago, a couple of years ago maybe, I made a little, I made a couple of pin cushions following a tutorial from Emma of the Vintage Sewing Box YouTube channel. I'm sure lots of you know her, and it's a lovely little pin cushion. I can recommend the pattern, and this introduced me to using the hexiform. I think they're all called hexiform. I don't think that's to do with the shape. The little hexiform pieces that you wrap your little pieces of fabric around, and the only thing that I found with that is that actually for a pin cushion it makes it quite hard to put the pins in and out. It's quite a stiff layer. I'm not really sure what hexiform is made of, but it does, yeah, so it's probably, I've had better pin cushions than that, just because it's quite stiff to put the pins in and out of. However, I thought it would be perfect to use the hexiform shapes for making a diary cover, because I want it to be hard wearing, and it doesn't matter if it's a bit, stiff. So that's what I'm using. So I made a little video to show you my progress, almost up-to-date progress, and then I'll talk a bit more about it when you've seen that. You can have a little break from my voice and a little bit of piano music as well. So I have a few issues with it so far. This is actually how far I've got. So I have starting to create the actual fabric. So first of all, I'm finding it quite hard to sew the shapes together because of the fabric being wrapped right to the edge so that you get an accurate shape. So with the fabric being wrapped right to the edge, and so I'm finding it hard just to go just into the fabric and not into the hexiform stuff as well. So that's making it quite tough on the fingers for sewing. So I don't know, maybe I might be doing something wrong. You can please tell me in the comments if you've got any tips on this. Another thing that started happening when I started sewing the columns together is that my stitching that stitched the original columns together is starting to come undone. Don't know why that is. I tied it off really tightly. I'm just using normal polyester thread, I think, So I don't know why that's happening. I think it's because I'm kind of contorting it a bit when I'm sewing, and so it seems to be pulling the stitching away. So that's a bit annoying because I'm having to keep restitching things together. And also it seems a bit kind of wiggly. Do you know what I mean? Not like it's not, if I put it down on the table, it's not lying flat. So I don't know if that's going to be okay when I've finished it all, if it's going to wrap around my diary all right. And then the other thing I'm not quite sure about what to do, I've got no idea what to do about this, is that obviously I don't want this edge. I want a nice straight edge for the edge of my diary. So I haven't really decided what to do about that. Can I just cut those off and cut the edges off to make that straight? As you saw in the little video, the template that I made, the paper template, I can cut it to that size, but I don't want to cut the stitching, obviously, because otherwise it's going to start coming apart. I'll need to do some kind of backing on here. And then I also need to add on a way of it staying attached to the diary. So the covers that I've made before, I've just done a panel down here to tuck the page into. So maybe I'll just do that. Anyway, hopefully it's going to be nice. I like the look of it, but yeah, it's not so relaxing to a sewing project as I hoped. Oh, and by the way, yes, I just remembered. In the little video, I said, could you guess where I was doing the sewing? If you've been here lots of times, then you probably recognised, there wasn't much to give away, but you probably recognised that I was in the camper van, because we did actually go away. We just had a very short overnight trip the weekend before last, and it was very, very cold. In fact, I was too cold to sew or knit for some of the time. Although the heater was on, my fingers didn't warm up very quickly, and so obviously you can't sew properly if you've got freezing cold fingers. But yeah, so that's where we were. So there will be a little bit of a video on that very short trip. I suppose it'll make a very short video, but that's okay, isn't it? That'll come up. And I am busy working on the East Anglia campervan trip as well. I am working on that, but I'm not sure when that'll be ready. I'm trying to give myself more breathing space, but you know, I'll see. Things will happen when they happen. I know lots of you told me that you don't mind one bit if you know, maybe I'm not popping up as often as you know, I have been. But for the time being, I like popping in here each week and chatting to you. So yeah, there we go. Right, I think I'm going to stop now. I think it's definitely time for me to say goodbye. So until I see you again, take great care of yourself. Keep yourself nice and busy. And I'll see you again very soon. Okay then, bye.